My dad was actually in the Boer War, and when the Boer War was over, he came to America, and then when Saskatchewan opened up in 1905, he came up to Saskatchewan and homesteaded. He was a telegraph operator for the Boer Army. We were about 60 miles south of Saskatoon. Believe me, the dirty 30s were every bit as bad as you can imagine. There was no work, and I remember about 1935, this was at the height of the drought. It was terrible. The people in Ontario sent trainloads of everything you can imagine. Food, clothing. We got daily papers from Regina, and then we had radio, so we were pretty well up on what was going on. And I had already made application to join the Navy. See, my brother joined in 1937. We used to say it was 10 months winter and 2 months poor sleighing. I got my papers, and then they just put us on a train, about 80 of us, and shipped us out here. We arrived here on the 4th of January, and it was a beautiful sunny day. Flowers were in bloom, all the mums were in bloom, a few roses still in bloom, and here's me with a heavy-duty fleece-lined undersuit on, a big doeskin shirt, a great big heavy overcoat, and a fur hat. It was 25 below zero when I left home. You're up about 4:30 every morning. They had us divided into 3 groups. One group did a 5-mile run before breakfast, another group did 45 minutes of PT, and then the other group would get in a couple of big whalers and row around the harbour. I didn't mind the run in the PT, but that rowing around the harbour in the rain, 27-foot whaler with a great big oar that you could hardly get your hands around. By the time you got back, somebody had to pry your hands off. It was so cold. I had to order the rum, receive it, store it, issue it, and account for it. And I never drank. Well, I worked in stores on the base for a while, and then I got a pierhead jump. There was a group of 5 minesweepers, and we were the lead minesweeper. The convoy might only be 1 ship, 2 ships, maybe 10 ships. And then we'd sweep ahead of them and convoy them up and meet the Americans coming down from Kodiak or wherever they were coming down from. And then we would patrol out around the Queen Charlotte Islands all night and be back at the base in the morning for another minesweep. And they were very concerned. Yeah, they had all kinds of training at school for the kids, because they figured they were going to be bombed too, Well, they started out as an armed merchant cruiser with 6-inch guns on it, and then when things sort of eased off on the coast here, they decided to convert it to an infantry landing ship for landing troops in Normandy. The 3 ships, Robert, the Henry, and the David, were built for the CNR. They worked up and down the coast here. They were luxury liners. They were real posh ships. They could carry a massive amount of oil and water, so we never had problem. That was like going to heaven going on that one. We didn't know when or where or what we'd be doing, but that's what we were outfitted for. There we had twin 4-inch guns fore and aft, and lots of small caliber anti-aircraft. We left here just before Christmas, went straight down to Panama Canal and up to New York. We took on over 500 American Air Force ground crew. And then we sailed, I think about the 10th, and we joined a great big convoy. Somebody said there was 250,000 troops in that convoy. As far as you could see, there was troop ships, cruisers. We went down to the south coast, and we did exercises for the invasion. We'd go into Southampton or Portsmouth or one of those places, and we'd pick up a load of troops. And of course, you'd get up in the morning, you'd be action stations, and everybody would say, "Is that France? Does that look like France?" Well, how the hell do I know? I've never seen France before, But the day we took on the Chaudière Regiment, we landed the Canadian Regiment that D-Day. Well, the landings took place on the 6th of June. We brought them on board on the 4th. They came on board, we went down and anchored at our usual place at the Isle of Wight, known as Area 4, and then we had a big talk from the captain. We're going the next morning. And then we got through on the armament broadcast and said it had been delayed for 24 hours. We started to pull out, and the ships, and there were just ships everywhere, troop ships on the move. Landing craft ships, tank landing craft ships. The troops started to load. The first load of troops went in the landing craft. The second wave of troops went in on bigger ships that came alongside. It would take maybe 300 or 400. A big British battleship on our left, HMS Rodney. Then there was a big American battleship just to our right. I think it was the Texas, I'm not sure. And then there was lots of cruisers beyond that. Then there were destroyers. Now, we weren't allowed to use our guns. Too dangerous. I would think probably about 9 o'clock they brought that first guy back in one of the landing craft. And the only way they could get him on board was to lash him in one of those Neil Robson stretchers and hoist him on board like a sack of potatoes. And they dropped him on the quarter deck, and he was that color. He'd bled to death. It makes you wonder how many more there are going to be before the day's out. And there was quite a few. They brought a barge alongside shortly after that. And I'm down there helping them put them in the stretchers and tying the stretchers up so they could hoist them inboard. And I remember one great big British Army sergeant. He must have been a 250-pounder. And he was walking up and down. So I thought, I wonder what the hell's wrong with him. Didn't seem to be anything wrong with him, see. So as he walked past me, as I'm secure in this stretcher, I looked up, and there was a patch on the back of his head that had been blown off. So I thought, oh my God, any minute now, shock's going to set in, and he's going to faint, see. So as soon as I finished with this stretcher and gave him the okay to take it up on deck, why, I said to this guy, I said, because they had scrambling nets down, see. So guys that could make it, maybe they had one arm in a sling and they could help him up. So I said, come along with me. I said, I got to get you on board. Oh, no, he said, I'm all right. He said, you attend to these guys first. I said, well, I'm going to give you a hand up that, me give him a hand. I probably weigh as much now then as I did then, about 130 pounds. So anyway, he was convinced there was nothing wrong with him. Nothing. He didn't need any help. So I called a couple of seamen to come down and give him a hand. And what I was afraid of was that his big boots would slip through one of those squares on that scrambling net. If he did, he'd have just gone down a wacko, you know. But the last time I saw him, he was on deck, and I never saw him again. And then I had one Army major in another stretcher, and I said, what happened to you, sir? Well, he said, I was all through the North African campaign, through the Italian campaign, and they drew me back for this show. And he said, I was on the beach a half an hour when a big shell went off close to me and broke my back. So he said, I guess I'm out of it for now. So after this, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we had finished unloading the second barge, and I wouldn't like to say maybe you had 70 or 80 wounded, dead, dying, or wounded on board. So we struck out and went back. We were heading for Southampton. But when we got there was an air raid on, and we couldn't go in. We had to wait until the next morning. We were there about 48 hours, I guess, and then we took a load of British soldiers in. Then we went back. They sent us up to Barry, Wales for a boiler clean. As soon as we had our boiler clean, we were down to the Mediterranean to get ready for the invasion of southern France.